Hello, hello! Glad to see you on my channel, and the first video of this year will be dedicated to a very simple item, which I knitted with knitting needles, and it will be this chic, colorful, incredibly long scarf. In this video, I will tell you everything you will need to knit this scarf, starting from the tools, ending with the yarn, the cast-on, the bind-off, and all the life hacks needed to knit this pattern, this herringbone rib, a double-sided, dense, voluminous, three-dimensional rib. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon so you can start knitting. And I also didn't forget to tell you that the width of the scarf is approximately 30 centimeters, but depending on what stretched state you measure it in, it stretches very well in any direction. The length is 150 centimeters, and I used 240 grams of yarn. To knit this scarf, I will need a contrast thread, waste yarn, because I will be doing a tubular cast-on using contrast thread. I will also need a crochet hook, because I will be doing the tubular cast-on using contrast thread. I will need a tapestry needle for sewing wool, because I will be doing a sewn tubular bind-off with a needle. The scarf itself I will knit on 5.5 millimeter needles. These are cubic needles. Here I am taking 5.5 millimeter. If you don't have cubic needles, just take a size 5. The yarn I have is this one. This is YarnArt Stylish Alpaca. It's a sectional variegated yarn. These are leftovers. Yarn required 2 skeins of this yarn. Here in one skein there are 150 grams, 525 meters. I needed 2 skeins, and here is what ended up as leftovers. You ask, will one be enough? No, one will not be enough. And now I will explain why. Because lately YarnArt delights us with its fantastic colorways, but the quality leaves much to be desired. In one skein I simply had a knot. It was joined God knows how, meaning the sections didn't match. And if you saw my scarf, I will insert a photo for you. For me, it was critically important that these color transitions remained identical, so there wouldn't be this chaos with colors, because at first you have a meter of normal constant color transitions, and then suddenly, for no reason at all, some other color starts. It would be ugly. With the second skein, there was an even more amazing story. In the center of this skein, they decided to add some other article. I don't even know if it's a different yarn article or even the same yarn, just a different color article. In my entire skein, this burgundy color did not exist. But for some reason, in the second skein, they decided that they needed to break the thread there, or I don't know, tie the thread like that, and add this dark burgundy in the center. Naturally, I didn't put any of this into the work either. I excluded all of this from the work. These are the leftovers from the second skein. I tried to match the color and excluded these wasted segments. So here is the actual remainder from the second skein. From it, I will start showing you how to make this scarf. I've complained to you about the yarn. Now let's start knitting. I take the needles, the contrast thread and the hook. I have 55 stitches cast on for my scarf. But since I am doing a tubular cast on, I need to cast on half as many stitches. That is, it will be 28. I divide 55 by 2 and round up to the greater even number. Of course, I won't cast on that many for the sample because I will still be showing a sample. I'll cast on 10 stitches onto the needle. You cast on 28. I cast on 10 stitches, then I'll continue the chain just for convenience so it doesn't unravel. And I'll tie it. And now I move on to knitting with the main color. I start the cast on itself. For the factory tubular cast on for this item, I will make it from a hollow rib double stockinette. How to do this? I take and knit the first stitch as a knit stitch. After it, I make a yarn over, I knit the next stitch as a knit stitch again. After it, I make a yarn over again. The next stitch I knit as a knit stitch again. Yarn over, knit stitch, 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 yarn over, knit stitch. It turns out that we almost doubled the number of stitches. I had 10, it became 19. That is, 9 stitches were added via one yarn over between the stitches, and thereby on the full item the same thing will happen. If you cast on 28 and add one yarn over between the stitches, you will get the final value of 55. So the first row of the hollow rib is practically ready. Now I move on to knitting the second row of the hollow rib. So slip the selvage stitch, don't knit it. Next I have a yarn over. I knit it as a knit stitch, and the next stitch I slip onto the right needle unknitted, yarn in front of the work. Again a yarn over, I knit it as a knit stitch. The next stitch I slip unknitted onto the right needle, yarn in front of the work. Knit stitch, slip, 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 knit stitch, and the selvage stitch. I always knit the selvage stitch as a knit stitch. And the next row of the hollow rib, again I slip the selvage stitch unknitted. Next, according to the pattern here is a purl stitch, I slip it unknitted, yarn in front of the work, and I knit the knit stitch as a knit stitch. And I alternate like this until the end of the row. Slip, knit stitch, slip, knit stitch, slip, knit stitch. It probably seems to you that these needles are too thick for this yarn, that they don't fit here, but believe me, they fit here perfectly because this stitch pattern is quite voluminous. It is 3-dimensional, and here I recommend for such knitting, specifically for this herringbone rib, always take needles a size, maybe even a size and a half larger than the manufacturer of your yarn indicates. So I knit the last one as a knit stitch, and with that my hollow rib is finished. Next I will move on to the setup row of the pattern itself. So the setup row, slip the selvage stitch unknitted. Here look, here everything is not quite so obvious. Here I pull the fabric down, and here I need to grab the stitch from the previous row. Here it is. With the right needle, place it on the left needle and knit it as a knit stitch, which is what I do. And the current knit stitch I slip as if to knit, unknitted like this. And it turns out that these two stitches are facing each other. That's how it should be. Next is a purl. I simply knit it as a purl. I knit in the classic style. You can knit grandmother's style, but in this pattern it's not that crucial. Again, here it is, the stitch from the row below. I pick it up with the right needle, put it on the left, and knit it as a knit stitch. The current knit stitch I slip as if to knit, unknitted. I knit the purl as a purl. Again, I take the stitch from the row below, put it on the left needle and knit a knit stitch. And the current stitch I slip knitwise. This is an important moment. You specifically need to slip it knitwise. What does knitwise mean? How do we knit a knit stitch? I insert the right needle from left to right into the stitch and knit. But when I slip the stitch, I don't knit it. I just slip it. Because a purl, if you remember, we slip like this and knit the purl like this. The critical moment is that this stitch must be slipped knitwise. Otherwise, your pattern won't work out. It will be a different pattern. I knit the purl as a purl. And again, I put the stitch from the row below onto the left needle. knit it as a knit stitch, slip the knit stitch knitwise. I knit the purl as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch knitwise, knit the purl as a purl. And I work like this until the end of the row. Knit stitch, slip, purl stitch, knit stitch, slip, purl stitch, knit stitch, slip, purl stitch. And I'm approaching the end of the row. Here a knit stitch remains. Again, I place the stitch from the row below onto the left needle, knit it as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch. The selvage stitch I always do as a knit stitch. The setup row is ready. And next will go the pattern row. This is the very row that repeats in both the right side and wrong side rows. In this pattern, the two sides are absolutely identical. Slip the selvage stitch unknitted. Here are two stitches. These two stitches. This is the knitted knit stitch from the previous row and the slip knit stitch from the previous row. I insert the needle like this and do two together as a purl. I knit purls in the classic style. The next knit stitch. Here again I place the stitch from the row below onto the left needle, knit it as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch knitwise, and I alternate like this until the end of the row. Two together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch. Two together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch. Two together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch. Two together as a purl. Again, I place the stitch from the row below onto the left needle, knit it as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch. Two together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch. Two together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch. Two together as a purl. So I'm approaching the end of the row. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch knitwise. Two together as a purl. And the selvage. I knit the selvage as a knit stitch, and I repeat this row again and again. To the necessary height, the pattern grows very slowly, not fast at all. It eats up a lot of yarn and a lot of effort. The next row, look, again, slip the selvage stitch unknitted, and here it is, the stitch from the row below. Here it becomes very clearly visible. One is here, it is now crossed, twisted. Here, see, it crossed over. I pick up this stitch and put it on the left needle, and knit it as a knit stitch. I slip the current knit stitch knitwise. Two together as a purl. Again, here it is, the cross stitch from the row below. I pick it up, put it on the left needle. Knit as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch knitwise. Two together as a purl. I put the stitch from the row below onto the needle and knit as a knit stitch. Slip the current knit stitch knitwise. Two together as a purl. I put the stitch from the row below onto the needle and knit as a knit stitch. Slip the current knit stitch knitwise. Two together as a purl. I put the stitch from the row below onto the needle and knit as a knit stitch. Slip the current knit stitch knitwise. Two together as a purl. And I work like this until the end of the row to the necessary height. I finish knitting the row to the end, the last stitches, the stitch from the row below. I knit it. and the selvage. I knit the selvage as a knit stitch. The next row. Everything is exactly the same. Again, I slip the knit selvage stitch, 2 together as a purl. Here it is. Here it is. It's crossed. It is very clearly visible. When you have already knitted a certain number of rows, I put it on the left needle, knit, slip, 2 together. Again, here it is. Put on the left needle, knit, slip, 2 together. I have one more piece of advice. Do not take metal needles for this yarn. It will slide on them. I started knitting the first sample on metal needles. Honestly, I suffered a bit. Everything kept slipping off for me all the time. In general, take wooden needles if you have them. Best of all, of course, are these cubic ones. But if there are no cubic ones, ordinary wooden needles are possible. Wood doesn't slip as much on slippery yarn. Look, I will knit some distance with this pattern. I will show you one more life hack with the selvage stitches, because right now I am doing ordinary selvage stitches, and frankly they aren't very suitable for this pattern because they are taller. Well, you can see that in the selvage stitches, it sort of enlarges the fabric because the selvage stitch itself turns out huge. I will show you what to do with them so they become small, narrow. I'll show how it looks on the finished item, and I'll show how to bind off this item with a needle. I knitted several rows. Look, let's remove the contrast thread now. Here I open the edge. I gently unravel it. Because the setup thread was crocheted, it unravels easily and is quite easy to remove from the item. This is the edge you get. And it seems to me that such an edge suits this rib best of all, better than this classic cast-on, or as it is also called, the long tail cast-on. Now look at the selvage stitches. About the selvage stitches, I already said that they are a bit large for this pattern. On my original scarf, the selvage stitches look like this. This is the braid that serves as the selvage. And you see they blend into the pattern both from one edge and the other. And on the other side, here it is, the selvage braid. And here it flows into the pattern itself. And I will show you how to make such selvage stitches. You can do them in the process of knitting. I like to do them after everything is already knitted. So another needle will be needed. Its size is not essential. At the edge where the needle is, I start dropping the selvage stitches. I drop the selvage stitch off and let them drop down, and simultaneously collect them onto the needle. Here the yarn just felts together, sticks. Therefore, dropping the selvage stitches is not so simple. One by one, taking my time. Dropping, collecting, so as not to miss anything. A couple of last selvage stitches remain. Here. I did a row of selvage stitches, unraveled them, transferred them to the needle. Next, I take a crochet hook and do this. I pick up the first selvage stitch. With this movement, from bottom to top, I pick it up, transfer it to the hook. I pick up the next selvage stitch with exactly the same movement. Together it crosses even more, and I pull one selvage stitch through the other. Next, I insert the hook into the processed selvage stitch and into the selvage stitch on the needle. And I pull the loop through the 2 loops that are on the hook, like this. Again, I pick up one selvage from the processed ones and a selvage from the needle, and I pull the loop through the 2 threads on the hook, again into the previous selvage, into the selvage on the needle and pull through, again into the previous selvage stitch, and I always remove them with this movement. This is necessary so that they become crossed, twisted. Here, see, it crossed and I pull through. Again into the previous selvage, into the selvage on the needle and pull through, into the previous selvage, into the selvage on the needle and pull through. The last selvage stitch I make from the working yarn and put the current selvage and the previous selvage on the needle. Next, I will knit one more row. Here, look, they became narrow and they also became sort of like a herringbone. Here, the pattern is a bit different, not the same one. Odd. But for this knitting, for this rib, they fit very well. I slip the selvage stitch 2 together as a purl. I put the stitch from the row below onto the left needle. Knit it as a knit stitch. Slip the current knit stitch knitwise 2 together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch. Slip the current knit stitch knitwise 2 together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch. Slip the current knit stitch knitwise 2 together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch. Slip the current knit stitch knitwise 2 together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch knitwise 2 together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch knitwise 2 together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch knitwise 2 together as a purl. I knit the stitch from the row below as a knit stitch, slip the current knit stitch knitwise 2 together as a purl, and the last selvage as a knit stitch. Look, here it is clearly visible. Here are these selvage herringbones, and here are the ordinary selvage stitches. How different the edge turns out. And for this knitting, I recommend you perform this trick with the selvage stitches to get this rigid, reasonably non-loose edge. Here I do the same thing on this side. I slip the selvage stitches carefully, one after another, drop them and put them on the needle. I do this at the very end, when the knitting of the scarf is already almost finished. Again, I take the hook, pick up one selvage stitch, pick up the next one, knit, pull through. I insert the hook into the previous selvage stitch, into the selvage stitch on the needle. I knit, again into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, into the previous selvage stitch, the selvage on the needle, we knit. Into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit, just into the previous one, the selvage on the needle. I knit. I make a selvage stitch from the working thread. Pick up the previous selvage stitch and place these two loops onto the needle. This is the sample I got. All life hacks are behind us, and now let's sew it up, bind off. I will bind off this sample with a needle. From the working thread, I cut a tail sufficient to sew this row. I thread this tail into the needle, into the thick eye, and here I will work practically in the most ordinary way that I finish a 1x1 rib item when I do a factory bind off with a needle. Only here, note that the purls will be double. Everything else will be like ordinary sewing. So I insert the needle into the selvage stitch and drop them. Next, into the knit stitch and drop it. Tighten. I return the needle into both selvage stitches, like this, and into the next two stitches, away from me, and drop them. Tighten. Here into the knit stitch loop, like this again, away from me. Here I work towards myself, but I watch to ensure that the stitch also crosses twists, because the main idea of our pattern is, after all, crossed stitches. That is, I don't insert the needle like this, that way our stitch won't cross, but like this. Look, here, I inserted it, the stitch crossed. Tighten. Here towards me, into those two stitches. These were the two together, purlwise, like this. Towards me, away from me, tighten. Again, here is this one, the crossed knit stitch, like this, away from me, towards me, but so that the stitch crosses. Tighten. Again, they are two stitches, towards me, away from me. Away from me, towards me, towards me, away from me, away from me, towards me, towards me, away from me. Tighten. Away from me, towards me. Tighten. Towards me, away from me. Tighten. Away from me, towards me. Tighten. Towards me, away from me. Tighten. Away from me, towards me. Tighten. Towards me, away from me. Tighten. Away from me, away from me. Tighten. Towards me. And here is the last one already. This is the selvage. Tighten. Return into the knit stitch and into the selvage. tighten. Here, and it seems to me that such a bind-off harmonizes best with such a cast-on. And here is the cast-on. Next, this thread can be carefully hidden, woven in. And just like this, carefully, I hide it in the edge. And I treat the second tail exactly the same way. That's it. On this, my sample is finished. My scarf is also finished. I hope that this video was useful to you, that you also decide to knit yourself such an item. It is big, warm, it is big, warm enough. In general, thank you very much for your likes, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell icon. Thank you for your attention. Bye bye.